Got a column coming out in Island Tides this week, I think, because this drives me crazy too, so I have some recent statistics in my head on it. One thing that I discovered from two constituents is that at least one constituent who was told he would save a lot of money going to India to get software developed, instead went to the UVic co-op and got two Canadian engineering students who did the whole project, and he said it cost him less than if he'd outsourced. He doesn't really think that you save money by outsourcing. What you do, though, is you avoid having to deal with a unified body, maybe a local union. Your labor is so stateless that it becomes yet another input to production that is completely separate from any notion that these are people that you care about. So it gives management more clout with labor because labor has increasingly fewer rights. But it wouldn't have, I don't know that TELUS actually saves money doing what they're doing. They may have crunched all the numbers, but this particular local businessman told me he'd costed it out, and at least in his context, he did better with Canadian kids. Now, of course, the full context of the economic impact is, if you've hired Canadians, they're spending that money locally. Whatever they earn is spent here in community, stays on Vancouver Island. The other example, of course, of the statelessness of capital and the globalization and commodification of everything is the temporary foreign worker program, which is exploitative of the foreign workers because they're not allowed to accumulate any rights in Canada nor any ability to come here to stay. And if they're only allowed to come to Canada on the temporary foreign worker program under contract to one particular employer. So if, for instance, they see something in the workplace that isn't kosher and they want to raise that as a concern, they're going to be shipped right back to their country of origin. So they don't, like the XL beef plant had mostly temporary foreign workers in it, and that's where the E. coli contamination happened about a year ago. And those workers in the XL beef plant weren't in a position to say, we can't maintain sanitary conditions when we have to actually deal with 300 carcasses an hour, which was the rate at which they were supposed to be doing the one slice that each worker did repetitively on a carcass as it moved by. So the temporary foreign worker program in Canada, as of, I think I've got this right, I think it was 2009, was the first year in which the temporary foreign worker numbers were larger than the people accepted for permanent residency in Canada. And as of the end of December 2012, Canada had over 344,000 temporary foreign workers here. And what I'm wondering is, how exactly, Shane, we have youth unemployment is holding firm at 14%. And how many Canadian young people don't get a crack at a job because the employer has chosen the temporary foreign worker program? So now, if we wanted to say, your point was we should make it illegal to use these programs, under the World Trade Organization laws and under various trade treaties, we are no longer allowed to say these jobs are only for Canadians. So we end up having to, I think we have to look at our tax treaty, we have to look at the incentives and disincentives so that we can encourage Canadian business to hire Canadians. We certainly need to look at the temporary foreign worker program because it was designed with the myth that it was going to be temporary, and it was designed on the notion that it's there to fill labor shortages, skills shortages. If we had close to full employment in Canada, you might think that there's no reason not to have 340,000 temporary foreign workers. But when youth unemployment is at 14%, it is not an acceptable public policy to create this exploitative program for foreign workers. So I agree with you, but the trade rules make it really hard to ban it. We certainly can reduce the number of temporary foreign workers because that's entirely at the government's discretion, and I think we need to be much more economically literate about the impacts of preferentially outsourcing our work, which of course also outsources the salaries and the consumer behavior that happens when your Canadian public is employed. The social issues of ignoring youth unemployment are another whole issue and are large. If you look at what, the rise of fascism in in Europe in the 1930s was directly related to persistent youth unemployment. And I'm not suggesting Canadian youth, if left unemployed, are going to become fascist, but the social conditions that protect healthy democracy, if you compare what happened in the Depression between Europe and Germany and North America, you saw that one of the things that FDR and the New Deal did was protect trade unions and encourage full employment, because that protects democracy, and that also ensures that your middle class is strong and healthy. Because if you don't have a strong and healthy middle class, democracy is much, much more precarious. So that's a bit